Hello. Sorry I missed last night. I was very tired. It was a very long day. I'm sorry. But I'm here, and here is part 4. So I left off with, I should have watched the end of part 3 because I don't remember. Okay. Okay, so as soon as my father was divorced, very quickly he ended up, in another relationship. I actually really liked this lady. Her name was Tomomi, and she was so nice. And she wore these blue contacts, and she had she wore her hair in a short bob, and it was like, she dyed it blonde or whatever. She was in her early 20s, and my dad was pushing 40, so obviously we knew what that was. But anyway, I liked her, and one day she just stopped coming around. Like, she was there all the time. Like, I remember I think they dated for like about 8 months to a year or so, and then she just stopped. No, at least to me, without any rhyme or reason, or without any explanation. She was just gone. Never said goodbye or anything. So I was very upset because, again, like I said, I really liked her. I was very attached to her. Um, and so it took me probably about a month to work up the courage to ask my dad where she was. And he finally just said, well, she wanted kids and I can't give her that, so she left. And that was that. Never heard from her, never saw her again. And also, she was a smoker. And I liked her so much that I oh my god. I I would, like, when no one was home, I had I was left alone a lot. I had very little adult supervision. So they would leave. I'd be home alone, and I would smoke her cigarette butts. So I kind of started smoking when I was 8. And so, again, this is third grade. Um, this is still third grade. So she's gone. I'm devastated, but I couldn't express that to my father because, well, he's my father and he's completely emotionally unavailable. So he couldn't have helped me anyway. But I did make this kind of group of friends, very superficial. I, found out much later that they pretty much were just tolerating me, and they didn't really like me very much. Which I can understand because um, by this point I had definitely fallen into a depression. I lived with a man who really didn't care about me outside of his image, right? So I didn't have anyone to really teach me how to take care of myself. So I didn't, my hair was always like, I wore like an afro. I wore boys' clothes. Like, sometimes I wouldn't bathe. Like, I was kind of gross. I was. And I lived in Japan where it's hot and humid, so that didn't help anything. So and and I developed, and I was already developed by this, pretty much. So like all these things, I hit puberty, so I just yeah, yeah. So that was happening, and so when I would come back to Alaska to visit my mom, then she would buy me clothes, and she would you know get my hair, like she would take me to get my hair done, um, and um, she took care of me. She did. My mom, was really good about that. I mean, why wouldn't she be? Um, so, by now she's married. Again, like I really didn't like this man. He was he wasn't very nice. Like, it's really sad because every once in a while when my mom talks about when they first met, she says that he was like Superman. And just the way she says it, and it just the way she says it is so sad, cuz I I think he, to put it plainly and as nicely as possible, I think he completely misrepresented himself to her. Um, and I don't, you know, and because at least he wasn't a pedophile, but he was and is a very selfish man, very self-centered. Um, you know, I've I can't really think of a time where he's ever really lifted a finger to help my mom. And so that became very apparent when I was a little kid. And again, I'm struggling, like, I don't like my mom, I don't like this man, but I really don't like him because I don't like how he's treating my mom, I don't like how he talks to me, very condescending. He had a temper, so he got mad really quick, which triggered, scared me, triggered me, you know um and but I do appreciate him because in his own way he did try to, from as best as he could tell, like he tried to tell me that my father was doing a disservice. And I'll get to that a little bit later, but he did try to wake me up, which wasn't possible at the time because, again, I was still very much trauma bonded to my father, and again, I didn't like him, so I really didn't have a reason to believe him anyway. I just hated this man. But but I you know I I do I am grateful to him for for certain things. um so this is going on in the summers. um Japan, things in Japan had kind of slowed down. Um, so here, this third, so I'm 8, 9 years old. I'm cussing. I started shoplifting, um, stealing clothes. I would do things like, grab a chocolate bar, eat it in the store, and then put it down somewhere. Um, and, I was also stealing money from my dad because he would leave his money out. And honestly, so when I wasn't in school, like weekends, I would wake up, or I would wake up and basically leave immediately, and then wouldn't come home until the last bus was it was time till the last bus. And I lived on the Air Force Base, so basically, they had a shuttle service, and and it stopped at like 10, so I had to get on like the 9:30 bus. So I'd leave at 10 o'clock, be back at 10 o'clock, and without a cell phone, right, or anything, any way to call my dad. But I mean, he really didn't seem to care. So that was basically my life, school, and then I would go hang out with my friends on the weekends, um, and I had money, so I could, buy myself food, and I would buy my friends food. I feel like, yeah, I think that's why they kept me around, because I have money, stolen money. um, and ninth grade, okay. Ninth grade was kind of quiet. So after my biological father's second divorce, after Tomomi, he started. It was a revolving door. There was like a new woman every few days, and as quickly as they came, they were gone just as fast. And it was crazy. Like it was crazy. And he was sleeping with, I mean, I would imagine most of them, if not all of them. you know I would some mornings have a question and walk into his room, and they'd be naked, you know and like it's like I didn't even know this other person was in the house. Like, I guess they would come over when I was sleeping, or something. Like, I really, man, I don't know. And okay, and then around this time, so this is the 90s, mid late 90s. So the VHS, okay? And this is around the time that I learned how to record. Like, remember, you could like record VHSs. So I would record, like, I loved figure skating too. So I would record like figure skating competitions, um and kind of ballet stuff, things that I found interesting, and shows. And okay, I might have to go back again, because I keep talking and I keep remembering stuff. I don't know if it's necessary to insert all of it, though. Yeah. Um, so basically, so I would find like these, VHS recording tapes around the house, and I would put them in. And so every once in a while, I would find stuff on these tapes. And they were my dad's tapes. And so that addiction also started. Pornography. And he also had, those, they were like DVD players, but they were like, so it was like a record player, but for movies. So he had those, and so like I would accidentally, he would have them like mixed in with the regular movies, and like I would watch these movies, okay, and I would watch these movies, like, and I'm talking about regular movies like Saturday Night Fever, which I shouldn't have been watching anyway. But like, but then like he had like his porno like mixed in, and I'm 9 years old. I didn't know what the titles meant. I didn't understand, like what the title, I mean, because there wasn't really people on there, or if they were just, you know, it looked weird, but they weren't doing anything, so I didn't know what it was. So I would put it in, and whoop, there it was, And he did catch me watching it a few times and didn't care. He like kind of laughed it off and didn't care. So that's going on. School settled down. By this time, like I said before, my temper was just 0 to 100 in a nanosecond. And it's probably why people didn't like me. Like, that's why people didn't like me, because I was crazy. I was crazy. I was completely unstable. That's why people didn't like me. Okay. So that's happening. And then it seemed like out of the blue, my mom asked if I could spend 5th grade with her. And Dad didn't really care, so I did. So, I moved in with my mom and her husband, my stepdad, for the year. We actually, that year, moved into the house that my parents still live in now. And my mom was pregnant with my sister. And so we moved. And my sister was already born. She was like 2 months old when I got back. And oh my gosh, she was so cute and she was so chunky. And oh my god, she was so cute. And and so I'm 10 years older than her. So I was her mom too. I, burped her, put her to sleep, clothed her, gave her baths. I was mom number 2. My mom had just retired from the Air Force, and she was a stay-at-home mom, but she was very involved with the church. She's been a praise dance team leader for like 15 years now. So she was always, a lot of times she was gone, doing stuff like that. So I would watch the baby. And so that was the year. I started my cycle. Yeah, so 5th grade, as far as school went, I was put into a Japanese immersion program at one of the the Anchorage School District, it's a program I actually ended up graduating from. And I was around a lot of, it was my first, really, I would say, like, it was the most white kids I'd ever been around, which I don't mind. That was not an issue. I've never cared about that. Actually, the first boy I ever liked, his name was Kevin. He was in kindergarten. He had curly brown hair and blue eyes. He was Can't believe I still remember that, but I do. That was my first crush ever. Kindergarten. Well, boy my age. I liked a lot of people by then. They were just adults. Again, horribly unstable and very unhealthy. And so fifth grade, and so my mom, she would always make sure my hair was done. And so, the kids would, can I touch your hair? And I, towards the end of the year, I remember I just got fed up and I just like lashed out at these kids because they kept touching my hair. Oh my gosh. I didn't attack anyone. I didn't do that. I liked these kids. They were cool people. And, you know, um, being in Alaska was very jarring, just being around, more Americans than I was used to. Like I would like living on Yokota Air Base was a little bit weird because it was, there were Americans, but there were a lot of Japanese people, and I interacted with, a lot of Japanese people, again, for, the first few years I was, I lived like a Japanese child, so I got used to all the mannerisms and, the unspoken rules, all that stuff. So coming to, spending that year in America, I was like, it was different. Um, and honestly, it wasn't until I actually permanently moved here, um, from middle school that it really hit me. And oh my gosh, the culture shock. That is a real thing. And I thought I was gonna die. I was like, I really thought, like, this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I want to go back home. Like, that's it was, it, but so that was fifth grade. But I did well. It was more stable. I, my mother, my stepfather were the complete opposite of my dad. So he didn't really care what I did or where I was. He didn't. Um, as opposed to my mom and her husband, they wanted to know everything. Who are my friends? Where was I going? Where was I going? Who with? What are their parents' names? What time are you coming home? What are you wearing? Like I. I couldn't. I couldn't deal with it, so I just chose not to have friends. I really did. I was like, I'm not. I basically raised myself, and my mindset was, I raised myself in Japan. Not that I did a good job. That's not what I'm saying. But I pretty much raised myself in Japan. I'm not going to come here and you're not going to just start running my life. That, rebellious. Also now very rebellious. Although quiet about it, because I was never mouthy, but I was very quietly, just, I would quietly simmer, you know. And um so then for sixth grade I went back to Japan, and um that was actually very hard because um most of the people that I had hung out with the year before were gone. You know, it's Air Force, it's military, people come and go. Um, but I still had a really hard time with it because it was, a few of the people I had known for, you know, a couple years, and I'd spent a lot of time with them. This is, really my first instance of, really connecting with other people. So that, that it was those, at least for me, I made some bonds, and they were very hard, to let go of. And, I had no way to contact them or anything like that. They were just gone. So that was hard. So, sixth grade was interesting. So we have, for those of you who, grew up in the military, maybe you're in the military, they had, the youth centers, right? So that's where I, always was after school or on weekends. We would go to the youth center, and the youth center would put on dances like once or twice a month, and they were for like 6th to 8th grade. Okay. So at these dances, now that I'm thinking about it, I am like, I realize that I was really surrounded by pedophiles, because like, so the adults, these adult men, they were in charge of music, and they were playing, what is that song? To the window, to the wall, they were playing, back that thing up, and all these, like, these filthy, like, why, 12-year-olds, 12 to 14-year-olds, are listening to these songs. And then not only were we listening to it, but we were actively like twerking on each other, and they would just watch us. And I mean, nobody had an issue with it, apparently, because from what I understand, like, even when, the couple of times that I went back to visit after I moved to Alaska, they were still doing the same things. And oh my gosh, wow. Like, I remember this one time, I was 17, and I had gone back to visit. This was actually the last time I would go back. I haven't been back since this time, and even though I'm planning to go in January, first month, but we'll see how that goes with how everything's going. But there was, so you'd walk in, and to the right, basically immediately to the right was the gym. And this one time I went in there was this girl. She was my age. She was 16 or 17. Her shirt was too small. Her boobs were hanging out. She had her belly button out. And she was standing in the middle of the gym, like, kind of doing like a striptease. And so not only were all the guys, like, the little boys in there, but like grown men were watching her dance. And at the time, I remember just being annoyed. Like, I just remember being annoyed. It didn't like dawn it, again, like, none of this had really, the programming hadn't been broken yet, so I didn't see anything wrong, like inherently wrong with what was happening. But that happened, and and I mean, like, it wasn't just like one song, like, she kept going. Like, I remember, like, she was in there for like a good 30 minutes. So first she was dancing, and then someone handed her a scarf so she could grind on it. Like, it was explicit. And but anyway, back to, okay, so this is back to 6th grade. So, but that was really, oh, I came back and he was married again. How can I forget that he was married again? I hadn't met this one either. I came back and she was there. Oh, bruh. What was her name? Sachiko? I really don't remember her name. She was an older lady, and I mean, she was pretty, she was nice. But I think they met, like, and got married really fast. And yeah, she was there when I got back, and I found out later that the reason why they got divorced was because she made him choose between me and her, which is actually what the second one did too. That's what the big fight was about. She made him pick between me and her too. And so, yeah, basically all my stepmoms, none of them wanted me. They were in competition with me, which is something I didn't know. Narcissism. So, I was starting to get really rebellious again. My dad hadn't changed. He still couldn't keep his hands off of me, and he would do it in front of her. And, he treated me better than he treated her. Like he was just more affectionate. I don't even really know how to describe it, but he gave me something that he did not give them. And, I think he, put me on this pedestal, and, they couldn't, and he put them in competition with me. Again, I didn't know. I was just a kid. I had no idea. No idea. And so, I mean, but everything was fine. Like, she introduced me to coffee. I was drinking coffee at 12, and I made new friends, as best I could. And so again, I was always gone. I was never home. Tried to stay away as much as I could. And I remember this one time, so he had moved. So on Yokota, they had these things called towers. They were like 9-story tall apartment buildings. And we lived on the 7th floor, I want to say. And I did not sleep well. I did not sleep at night very well. Actually, I just didn't sleep at all. So I would finally like pass out from exhaustion at like 6 in the morning, and then I'd sleep until 12. This was the weekends, and then I would go out, stay out until like 10, and be up all night. But I remember this one night. Now, Japan is very much, they're very into the spiritual realm, but not God. So if you've ever watched like anime or any other shows or like their movies, they always have an element of spirituality, actually straight up witchcraft. and pedophilia. Don't forget. Don't forget. That's my child. Don't forget pedophilia. And so you would see things. It was normal to see things. I remember this one time I was up and I left my room and I went out into the living room and I looked outside, and on our deck, there's this railing and there was netting over it to keep, I think it was to keep the pigeons from coming in or something. I'm still not quite sure why they did that. I'm pretty sure it was to keep like the pigeons from roosting, and yeah, pigeons are nasty. But I saw this like creature just sitting on the railing. This little, well, maybe he wasn't so little. I mean, to me, he looked little. But I was also standing across the room. But he was just crouching on the railing. And then he like looked at me and kind of smirked and then jumped. And it wasn't until the next morning I realized that wasn't how, I didn't realize that it was kind of, how did he do that? Because what was it? Number one, what was it? But how did he get through the pigeon netting? Because like the holes were like, this big. This was like a whole imp of a creature, and he just flew away. He like jumped, and I guess he flew away somewhere. I couldn't see him where he went. But things like that were normal. I started seeing things like that. Which I think part of that came from my first stepmom, because again, part of her torture. Like, I remember this one time I was 6 and I accidentally spilled like rice, like dried rice on the floor, and like most of it got up, but some of it, I just couldn't get. And so what she told me was that when you spill rice, there's a specific spirit that was going to come and eat the rice and then come torment me all night. So I was in my room all night. Like, I did not sleep. I did not move. I did not sleep. Like, I actually didn't sleep for a few nights because she scared me so bad. And so I was introduced to that, very early as well. So that was in 6th grade. And again, that scared me. Okay. So I kind of, as best I could, I used to love going out there and just sitting there, but I for like probably a good month or two, like I just would not go near that, the patio. I just wouldn't. And so again, 6th grade, I'm shoplifting a lot now, and I would just basically steal my entire wardrobe. And I don't know how I didn't get caught. I needed help. Like, why didn't anyone catch me? I needed to be caught. Man. So, I'm spiraling, clearly just spiraling and spiraling. And, nothing's changed. My dad's still the same. This woman doesn't like me. And by the end of 6th grade, it was decided that I was going to move in with my mom permanently. I was moving to America. And I'm going to stop is this 3 or 4? Part 4 right there. And stay tuned for part 5.